What's in a name? A few years back in my previous life chapter, my then wife and I decided to add to our family by adopting a dog. And after months of searching for just the right fit, we had found our pup. I remember trying to come up with a good name for our newly adopted doggo. He was 70 pounds of white fluff, along with a lovable grin and a wonderful demeanor that accompanies many English cream golden retrievers. And when he arrived from the dog rescue, I believe his given name was Montana or something horrible like that. Sorry for all of you Montanas out there. We realized that what we wanted was a new name to help formalize the new chapter for this beloved new family member. And so I got thinking in my head, an English cream coloring, a dignified male, a loving temperament. And we tried a few names out here and there, but then it came to me in the middle of the night. King George, the seventh of the House of Binder. Now note, there have been 6 previous King Georges in England's history up to this point, so he would obviously be the 7th. That's it, I exclaimed. And graciously, my wife agreed, although we would call him George for short from that point on. And George has lived into every bit of his given name over the years. He remains a wonderfully loving, dignified presence with whomever is privileged enough to have an audience with the king. What's in a name, we ask ourselves. A lot goes into a name. I'm willing to bet that many of us here can share a story or two about our own given names. What are the origins of your family name? Why did your parents name you as they did? Is there a story that goes along with your middle name, perhaps, or lack thereof? This morning, we are reflecting on the power of names. We'll read of Abram's transformation into Abraham, but we are also made aware of just how important names can be in all sorts of scenarios in life, as we are also introduced to Hagar, to Ishmael, Sarai becoming Sarah, and, of course, Isaac. And so as we get into our reading today, I invite us to be open to how God calls us today as well, uniquely by our names, within our lives of faith. And so let's get back once again into this wonderful story. Again, we're reading from Genesis chapters 16 and 17. And like previous chapters, there is a lot going on as we have been going throughout this Abrahamic narrative over the last couple weeks. Last week, we read of a battle scene where Abram's nephew, Lot, was taken captive and eventually rescued by Abram. And we also read of this covenant, this holy pact made between God and Abram for a good future, even if it will take 4 generations. And today we read that Abram and Sarai are growing impatient and quite desperate with God's delayed promises. And so they come up with an alternate plan to address this question of Abram's heir. Abram will have a child with one of Sarai's servants, so that his lineage may be continued for a new generation. Which all seems like a good idea. Until everyone realizes that this is not a good idea. Immediately, this new reality presents a conflict and tension between Abram, Sarai, and now Hagar, the servant chosen to bear the child. Hagar knew that she was in a lose-lose situation, and so in her own desperation, she escapes into the wilderness. And this is where things get interesting, isn't it? In the wilderness, where the distractions of the world are removed, and we as humans are left to confront our deepest truths and realities. Hagar, a lowly servant by many accounts, one who is by many accounts not a person of authority or power, one who now finds herself in the midst of conflict and estrangement. This same Hagar encounters an angel of God. God is in the wilderness. And in a proclamation that is reminiscent of God with Abram, or even much later with Mary, mother of Jesus, this angel tells Hagar that God has heard the cries of the desperate. God has plans for her and her yet-to-be-born son as well. She is to name him Ishmael, which can be translated as God hears. They too are now part of these same God promises that have been reminiscent throughout these previous chapters. She tells the angel that she's going to name this angel El Roi, which means God sees, for God truly saw the lowly, desperate Hagar in her distress on that day, and she will name this location which she encountered the angel Beer Lahai Roi, which means the well or the spring of the living one who sees me. But our story doesn't end there, does it? As wonderful as we can be recounting within this chapter all its own, about 13 years later, God once again encounters Abram, now 99 years old, and lets him know of a new day ahead, similar to the promise of chapter 12 and the covenant of chapter 15. God once again promises descendants and land to Abram, and with it, a name change. Abram will become Abraham, meaning ancestor of a multitude. And male circumcision will be the marker by which the descendants of Abraham will be known. And Sarai is now to be known as Sarah, for she has a new role to play as well, a mother of the future generations known by the covenant. And out of Abraham's laughter at the mere idea that he and Sarah will have a child in their old age, Sarah will bear a son and name him Isaac, meaning he laughs. And God will bless both Ishmael as well as Isaac. And the lineage and the promised land of God's covenant will rest with the descendants of Isaac. What an amazing story for us to be recounting these days. In these days of uncertainty, as we wrestle with our own doubts and fears in this world, as we are invited to reflect on the many themes and storylines of the Abrahamic narrative, we are once again reminded of God's good plans for our future, even in the midst of our very real experiences of uncertainty, struggle, and doubts in our lives. And I think what I find most inspiring about our reading today in particular, in our good news today, is that God individually calls us by name. Think about this. As small and seemingly insignificant as we are within this giant's endless world, as just one of the countless stars in the sky that have been referenced before, or one of the particles of dust on this earth, space dust as it's known by some, God calls each of us individually by name. God sought out the distressed Hagar as she fled through the wilderness and called her by name. God blessed and named Ishmael, even as he was born in controversy and conflict. God gave new names to Abraham and Sarah upon the miraculous news of their firstborn Isaac. Yes, friends, God does have good plans for us. We are called to live in a relationship with God, and we do so acknowledging that even in a world that seemingly seeks to make us anonymous, God desires to intimately know each of us bless us and to delineate us as beloved child of God. You see, names carry with them power. Names give us a history and a heritage to honor and to celebrate. Names give us a purpose to carry out within our daily lives. Names give us a future to dream and envision a better tomorrow for future generations to come. So today, as we celebrate the good news that God knows our names, each of us, no matter where we find ourselves in this messy world today, know that we are intimately known and loved by our Creator. We are named child of God. We are named beloved. In Jesus Christ, we are named Christian. And when we know our name and who named us, then we can live our lives of faith assured of our futures as part of God's good plans. We can face the uncertainties of this world as progeny of the one who first called us, proclaiming God's message of a bright future for a world so desperately in need of good news. We as the church can look forward in faith, celebrating that we are part of a kingdom already here and at the same time yet to be ourselves forever known and blessed by this same God of eternity. And as we lean into this identity as the beloved, the named of God, we do so extending this same grace and love to all those who may feel forgotten, unknown, and unloved in this world. There is a God in Jesus Christ who loves you, who desires to know you, and calls you to new identity in the Spirit. And this is what we celebrate today. Knowing that we are intimately named and loved by the God of the universe. The one who created the countless stars in the sky knows us and claims us as God's own. We worship a God who intimately desires the best for us in this world and beyond. Our very lives, a reflection of that love and grace for all desperately seeking to be called by name in this world. Friends, no matter where we come from, no matter our parents or our backgrounds, our histories or our stories, we know that we are part of God's story. And for this, we give all thanks and praise. Alleluia. Amen.